First hardcore show I ever saw was Reagan Youth. And I saw Reagan Youth at a weird fucking place on Queens Boulevard called the Subway. That was actually inside a subway station in Queens on Queens Boulevard. And I'm pretty sure that band Ism was on the bill too. And I went to it. I'm not even sure 100% who I went with, but I'd never been to an actual hardcore show before. And so why not go to this weirdo place and see it? So you went down into the subway, and instead of making a right to go down the second set of steps to the turnstiles, you made a left and there was a door. And so I go in the door, and there's like this nightclub looking place that you could tell probably doesn't do hardcore shows regularly. So I go in, and everybody's all kinds of fucked up, and they're sitting on the floor and just, ignoring Ism, and, there's 50 people there, tops. And then Reagan Youth came on, and the place went berserk. So all of these drugged out freaks that were sitting on the floor are now a circle pit. And Dave Insurgent's up there throwing down, and it blew my mind. And it was just fucking incredible. And I was like, where has this been all my life? I know everybody says it, but it's CBGB's. I mean, CBGB's was the clubhouse for New York hardcore. I mean, to me, I identify it with hardcore and going to these great shows with all of my favorite bands, and that's where I saw them. That's where it felt like home to me. And I just don't think, no matter where else you went that I liked, there were some great other clubs and whatnot. I don't think anything really rivals CBGB's in terms of the full hardcore experience at the right time in New York. I don't know if I could pinpoint a show that I wish I saw back in the day. I wish I had seen something at A7, which I didn't get to see. I missed it by about a half a year or something like that. And then I wish I never got to see Minor Threat. I wish I saw Minor Threat play. I'll never forget my first time seeing Agnostic Front. I saw them at CBGB's in 1984, and it was the Victim in Pain era. Victim in Pain was out, and it was just the fucking most wild experience I'd ever had up until that point, from the crowd to the band to the atmosphere inside the club and how volatile it felt, but at the same time it felt like this like it was like, I don't want to say Boy Scouts, but there was this whole, everybody knew each other. It felt like it was still small, where everyone in there, it seemed like they knew the person next to them, and I was the person they didn't know. But the band went up there and they threw down with this power and this intensity, and it was actually like that Maxell ad with a dude sitting on the chair and his hair's blowing back, and you're just like, what the fuck? Like a tornado just came into this building and just decimated everybody and everything. And that was just a game changer that I don't think I could ever forget. I mean, Earl Hudson is clearly one of them. I think Mackie gets the most style points for his groove and all of that. And I think someone who doesn't get any love, which is ridiculous to me, is Kenny from Candiria. He's one of the best drummers I've ever seen play, period. And certainly one of the best drummers I've ever seen play hard edge music, incorporating hardcore. I mean, he's that guy that if he quits the band, there is no band, because you can't replace him. Like, that's how incredible he was. There were two. Bullshit Monthly was a favorite of mine for sure, and I knew Mike. I went to high school with Mike Bullshit, so I got turned on to it in school, not even at a show yet. And then Guillotine. I think Guillotine, for me, before I'd been to a matinee, reading that and the show reviews that were in Guillotine that Wendy would do and everything, those were the reviews that gave me a feel for what those shows were like, without having been there yet. And I think that they covered the bands that really were a part of the New York hardcore scene, and it was a very diverse, bunch of bands at that point. But the way that they covered the scene and the stuff that they covered was pretty amazing, and I always looked forward to when the next Guillotine was coming out. I would say my top 3 favorite crossover bands, and whether they considered themselves this or not: Leeway, the Crumbsuckers, and Nuclear Assault. I think those are the 3 crossover bands that you can look at them now and listen to what they did then and go, it's still fucking great. It's still better than most everybody else's shit. And you can look back and go, I'm not embarrassed to say that I love them. Carl from the Icemen. Carl from the Icemen, he had like a toughness about him, but he had a lot of style. I think he was also very imitated. A lot of people tried to cop his style. And he didn't look like he was going to be that lunatic on the dance floor guy, but he was all over the place. And he was kind of little, and so he got air, like a lot more so than a lot of other people because of his size. But he had those style points. Like, if you wanted to say, what is that New York dance floor thing about? Like, I think you could look at him and say, that's what it is right there. Right now, the person that's coming to mind is Hoya. Hoya is fucking hysterical. And I think people, again, they look at Hoya and they see this big dude and they're just like intimidated by him or whatever. He is a fucking comedian. He could probably do stand-up comedy. Like, that's how funny he is. And then probably the funniest unintentional comedian would be Stigma. In a very Yogi Berra kind of way. I have to say, I don't think I've ever received an actual pearl of wisdom from Vinnie Stigma. But I can say that Vinnie Stigma used to prank phone call me at home. When we worked together with In Effect, they would go on tour. And, those guys were bored out of their heads on the road. And at like 4 a.m, my phone would ring. And it'd be like, hey, you Jew, like, shit like that, And he's trying to be like, some fucked up, like anti-Jewish guy to be like Stigma on the other end of the line. And honestly, I would just crack up and hang up because I was too tired. I was like, I have to get up in 2 hours. You're going to sleep right now? But like, yeah, Stigma used to prank me at home, and forget at home, at my parents' home. So the phone would be ringing at 4 a.m, and then it'd be Stigma, like, goofing, and then I'd have to tell my parents, like, no, it's fine, like, nothing's wrong, I know the phone just rang at 4 a.m.